In this episode, we talk about Game of the Year. What's the point? AMD, Intel, and Nvidia Next Gen GPUs, get your lottery numbers ready. Xbox and PlayStation, enter the Octagon. Fight. 2022, what will you remember? Quality? Without further ado, let's talk tech. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Haptic Feedback. So, how's everybody doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Nicely well rested over the Christmas period, and yeah, it's been a long time since we've had a catch up on this podcast. So, no, it's good to be back.
Yeah, likewise for me as well. Had a nice break with the family. Managed to get away twice. As the fathers and parents out there know, it's not necessarily a holiday with the kids. Didn't get as much time to do gaming over the Christmas break, but there's been quite a lot of news in the market, which is nice. And 2023 is looking like it's going to be a big year for games. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, cool stuff. I mean, likewise, I got a fairly good break over this, the festive period. I kind of went away basically with the family, but as you just said, Jay, it's not really a break, is it?
No, it's a
It's a bit of a troll at some days.
it's like a tease, isn't it? You're kind of on holiday, but you're not really.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You convince yourself you're on holiday, but you're not. It's not quite the holidays you used to know.
Yeah.
But equally, it was nice to get away from the from the kind of weather in London. Obviously, we had a fairly cold December. We got a couple of inches of snow, right? As I remember, I haven't seen the snow settle for years. if I remember it correctly.
We missed all of that. We had a mega flow burst when we came back, and there was a leak in the kitchen. So
oh my god,
been dealing with all of that sort of stuff.
Sounds like fun.
Our first insurance claim on the house. So yeah, but yeah, it's.
No, I was up in Yorkshire. I didn't get any snow. It was cold, but we didn't get any snow.
Yeah, I mean, bad weather. Christmas seems to be kind of quite synonymous in the UK anyway. Yeah. In many ways, I'm kind of glad it's over. Coming into the new year, hopefully with some interesting gaming news, technology news, and like Jay said, it could be a really big year for gaming.
Mm.
And I think with that said, let's get into it. The first topic I want to talk about, guys, Game of the Year. So the regular Jeff Keighley kind of event. Yeah. So first of all, I mean, did you guys catch it?
Not me.
Yeah, no, I saw summaries of the show and clips of some of the big news announcements. I've been particularly following what's been happening on the fighting games front. I've just gone balls deep on fighting games, and I mean, yeah, it seemed to be pretty good show, given it was a pretty flat year. I mean, there are a few blockbuster games that came out, but it was a pretty flat year for gaming. So, compared to what we've had all year, my understanding of watching some of the highlights and what the media was saying, it seemed to be a reasonable show.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because usually, these Game of the Year shows are quite either cringeworthy or not that great.
What?
Yeah.
Was it this year that there was some random guy that was managed to get through security and get on?
That's right. Yeah.
I think that was the only clip I saw.
But it was actually a good show in comparison to other years, and with it being such a flat year, Yeah, it's ironic. This is probably the best show that Jeff Keighley's put on for many a year, if not the best show that he's ever put on.
The thing is, like, it's always been the leftover stuff left for the Game Awards, because there's been so many big announcements throughout the year, but there was not much. So we were starved so much that our expectations were so low. That's probably why we thought it wasn't bad.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I felt there were some really kind of big announcements. I mean, I'll just kind of talk about what I thought were the key points. I mean, no real kind of Xbox showing, but Phil was there in person, even if his games weren't there.
Can I just say, just while we're there, what a wet fart of a year for Xbox.
Yeah, it was not
bad.
good, was it?
They're on their last legs, I feel. If this year, 2023, they've got 6 months to redeem themselves. I mean, I'm going to throw that Xbox out the window. I'm not even going to... Series X, I was so frustrated because...
Literally, it's nothing.
It's nothing. So bad.
It literally is absolutely nothing. Yeah.
And I don't want to go down like a rabbit hole, but even amongst that with Halo as well, with their roadmaps and the lies that have been told about, they've brought people in to fix it. We're going to have X, Y, and Z, and even for a game that's already out, and not fixing that as a flagship game, and it's a year out, and there's not even any cosmetics that should be easy to put into the game. My confidence in Xbox going forward is so low, and I actually think Phil's tenure is being all fake news. That's how I'm feeling about Xbox. But let's say that for another conversation.
Well, they've been riding, the crest of the wave of Game Pass. I mean, that's carried him through for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, and the whole accessibility stuff they've been talking about as well, which is like Sony have come out. This they're showing with their accessibility accessories coming out now. I think they're against the ropes now. I think with Sony.
It's such an odd situation, isn't it? You kind of at the start of this this generation, you thought, wow, these guys are coming out swinging, and then we've been starved of kind of games, maybe not news, but certainly starved of games. And then Sony, who are not really talking at all, quietly trickling out their kind of first-party games all the time. Quietly trickling it out. Making a complete shit show of their kind of premium tier. Clearly can't do services, to save their life at the moment. But, they're still trickling out these first-party games and tying in exclusive content. But I mean, that's what this Game Awards did feel like. This show felt like. It felt like a bloody PlayStation State of Play. You looked at what they announced there. You had, like Death Stranding 2. You had, extended train of Final Fantasy, 16. Yeah, and there's numerous other bits and pieces like, I think DLC for Horizon. It just felt like a state of play.
It's Sony going in reverse in terms of speed. In reverse, it's still outdoing Xbox at the moment. That's how bad it is.
It is a little bit criminal, though. I mean, Sony are just saying absolutely bloody nothing most of the time. I mean, there's no spectacle, right? It's just a blog post and maybe a video. Here you go. But yet, when it come to the end of this, and it feels like they've got more to say than Xbox. It's bizarre.
Well, that's the thing. They don't have to. It's like if this is the competition, why do I need to try any harder?
Potentially.
There's the other part to this, which is, it's not just about the games being delayed by Xbox. I don't have the confidence in their ability to pump out the games of quality, even if they had X amount of time that they need to get out the door. I just, when was the last time they actually created a really good 10 out of 10 game.
Mm.
There's
Yeah,
not many of them.
Yeah.
There's what Horizon, what's it? Forza Horizon 5, right?
Yeah,
That's all I can think of.
but that wasn't even this year.
No, it wasn't.
No,
I'm talking. Yeah, they're just.
it's odd.
You know,
It's,
you've got the. I mean, let's say in 6 months' time, you've got Redfall that drops. You've got Starfield, right? Maybe they've got Forza Horizon. Was it 8? I think that's the next one coming out after that. If those aren't good games, and I'm really dubious about Starfield, Redfall they're not shown much of. Then what have they got next year?
it's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, we might get to the Game of the Year awards next year or this year, end of this year, and imagine if we're in the same situation where, you know, yeah, it's like it's a bit of a no-show. You know, again, I mean, it was it felt like a bit of a no-show in terms of obviously the actual winners itself and maybe the nominees. You know, for kind of from Xbox.
If I may just say one last thing on this, because we probably spent a lot more time than we should have, is all the media outlets are saying that almost all the credibility, all the goodwill they had built up around Game Pass and around being the best deal in gaming, and you know, Xbox are here now. They've had a little bit of a bump. Just give them a bit of time. All that goodwill has been burnt now. I think this year, or 2022 last year. It's now time to deliver on, and I think they're gonna really struggle. I think.
Well, it's a do or die situation, isn't it? Really, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they will survive in terms of they've got enough like players who have got the PC version of Game Pass, and they will still make money. They're not going to go anywhere. But to be taken seriously as a competitor to Sony in the console, I think this is their
Yeah.
They're bleeding now badly.
To have the standing they want to have, you know, to outright lead. I mean, that's where the clock's ticking. I think.
Yeah, but
because you need games for that,
and I think that's why the things that have been happening with their acquisitions and slowing things down. That's going to mess them up really hard.
Yeah,
they're not going to have those exclusives.
Yeah, let's not roll into that. There's a whole different part of the course for that. But I mean, going back to the Game of the Year awards, or the Gotties, or whatever we want to call them, all the kiddies. You know, I don't know why he doesn't give out kind of a statue of himself, really. You know, I did feel this year that we actually got some really solid announcements. I mean, Death Stranding 2, which is, you know, another, I think, PlayStation console exclusive, but also on PC. Hades 2 is actually getting a sequel.
Yeah,
and that was that was a multiple game of the year.
Yeah,
winners time. It was quite a big winner. Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8.
Oh, 6 is good.
Yeah.
I played the beta of that.
Yeah, I mean that's got a release date, I think now. Yeah, Tekken 8 actually looked quite good.
That looks really good as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 16 got an extended trailer and a release date, I think, confirmed.
Is that Sony exclusive? Is that?
Yeah, it is. It's one of these kind of like
timed exclusive.
Yeah. If let's say Final Fantasy 7 remakes anything to go by, it could be a long time.
Yeah.
Because Judas, which was a game from the creator of BioShock. I don't know if you guys have really played much BioShock.
I played the first one a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that looked excellent, and the games, it's been talked about or murmured about for kind of some years now. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Warhammer, I love my Warhammer 40k. There's a new Warhammer game, Space Marine 2. It looks amazing.
Yeah, but surely that news is eclipsed by certain other media around Warhammer.
Oh, the Henry Cavill situation.
That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge.
How big are you? Would you say Warhammer is in gaming? I mean, it's something
It's
that-
massive. I was thinking about this the other day, right? And I looked at my kind of Steam library. I've got so many Warhammer games in there,
It,
right?
it took them a long while though to release their IP, because I'm just thinking back, Joe, around Dawn of War 1. It took them ages to release that.
Yeah, yeah.
But as soon as that happened, there's like a floodgates of kind of
It's
Warhammer
absolute
games.
floodgate. I would say there is more Warhammer 40k games at the moment than there are Star Wars games.
Yeah, I can. It wasn't necessarily about the volume. It was more around. I didn't appreciate how much of a strong following it has, and it's still not a mainstream following, is it?
No, it isn't.
It's quite specialist.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
like it's quite nerdy.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, that's how I've always thought of it
Yeah.
as, and yeah.
I mean, I've got the old models.
Yeah, but I think it's I don't know what to call it, but there's very few untapped, let's say, IPs out there. Like big expansive universes that you can produce content. Will it be games, film, God forbid, music, like and TV, right? And to my mind, Warhammer is the last of this, of these IPs. Even stuff like Lord of the Rings, because of the movies were so successful,
Yeah, it goes back to when this came out, right? Because I guess Warhammer as a universe, both the sort of basic fantasy and 40k, all that kind of stuff also came out similar times to Warcraft and other things that was kind of competing, all kind of going for that same theme of.
It was before then, Al.
Yeah. I know.
It's 1970s the company started.
So it probably depends on which ones you're exposed to first.
Yeah.
Of which you then continue that kind of genre.
Yeah. What I was trying to say is that the lore and the universe development started in the 70s. It didn't start when, let's say, the computer games started or when the novels started to be written, right? All of that has built up, over between 40 to 50 years now. And you've got this massive untapped universe of material that people can really kind of like... they can get a lot out of. I mean, I hope they do. I hope they do the kind of IP some justice. I hope it's a TV program Henry Cavill's basically getting involved in, right? I hope
I
it's
have
not
faith in
embarrassing.
Henry.
Yeah, I do as well. But you know what I mean? Like, it could just be massive. Is what I'm trying to say. I mean, I mean, the other day I did think, and we're going on a complete tangent again. I was thinking to myself, if you're a company and you wanted to compete with someone like Disney Plus, or Disney, I should say, yeah. Disney have got they got Marvel, they've got Disney, they got Pixar, they got whatever they got. I was thinking, well, what could you do? Well, Warhammer, you could DC, do stuff like that. It's but yeah, it's so rich, right? There's so much they could do with it. But it's just like whether they kind of manage it, and it's the kind of like story that are being written about 40k per se. Think Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
fully adult, hugely violent, horribly violent, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. But I can't wait for the game, and I'm kind of like kind of managing my expectations for what they do with the TV program, because I've wanted this for a while, right? And I just thought to myself, wow. And Henry Cavill, Space Marine all the way.
Yeah, he's got to be. He's got to be.
Yeah, he's got to be, right. But that's not Space Marine 2 was not the highlight for me. The highlight for me was Armored Core. Armored Core making a comeback. I don't know if you guys played that, but
No,
played the originals.
no, but I like those sort of games, and I've seen the CGI trailer for it. I think at least it looks really
Yeah.
good. You can imagine that looking good on some PS5 tech. Unreal Engine 5.
If that comes to VR, I'm
Ooh.
all in. But
That'd be amazing. I'm salivating now. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember Armored Core. And, like I used to, play those games on the. I think Armored Core Nexus was the last Armored Core I bought on PS2. My God, amazing game. I mean, it's a certain. You have to have a certain taste in games, and that taste in games is basically twinking in building. Let's say, your Armored Core, which is not that different, from, let's say, in principle to building a character in, say, Diablo, yeah, and that sort of thing, or or some, you're building up your character in Destiny. It's that sort of thing, but it really is just that customization, But yeah, it could really fit really well in a VR space.
It's got, for me, it looks like it's got that Ace Combat kind of thing going on.
It's deeper than that. It's deep.
No,
it's
yeah,
a lot, yeah.
I can imagine, but it's that vibe when you're playing. I don't know.
Well, it's
a
Japanese. Right? It's a Japanese developer, and it has that Japanese feel in and around it.
Well, it's from Soft,
and it's actually it is really well made in and around it, and I guess the dialogue, it does this very similar to kind of the Ace Combat kind of stuff as well. They just kind of like randomly pop up, start covering some narrative, and then off you go in your mission, going from one issue to the other. So it's cool.
Can't really remember a lot about the narrative, but I mean, it was all about the twinking and customization. You know how what would happen when we used to play, Diablo 3. I used to disappear for about half an hour trying to manage my inventory or something. It's that sort of thing. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, so those sorts of announcements, I've got to say, like, wow, for a Game of the Year award, for me, it didn't feel like filler. Hades 2, Death Stranding 2, obviously Final Fantasy 16 release date, Armored Core making a comeback, Street Fighter 6, Judas from Ken Levine. People have been waiting for this new game for a while. Even Diablo 4 got a release date.
Star Wars: that Jedi Survivor as well. That's quite a big game.
Yeah, and the actor who plays the main character actually came on stage. Yeah, so that was interesting. And talking about people who came on stage, Alpa effing Chino came on stage to give one of the awards out. Who would have thought? Scarface. Say hello to my little friend.
Is he a gamer?
No, he said he wasn't actually. He said, "I'm not a gamer. I know nothing about this stuff." But I kind of appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
He didn't come on stage and just literally try and pun game it or something. Yeah.
Desperate for money.
Yeah, potentially, but it was good to see him there. But he was actually giving away the award for the best performance.
Yeah,
which is why he was there. So
yeah, fair enough.
yeah. But yeah, going back to this, it wasn't filler content they kind of announced. There was even some sort of cyberpunk, I think it was DLC, wasn't it? Announced Horizon DLC. You can see this. It's actually quite Sony kind of heavy in many ways. The Last of Us Returnal announced on PC, so on and so forth. But getting into the so-called reasons why we had the Game Awards, well, it's awards, right? And it should be, I think, for me anyway, it was no real surprise that Elden Ring kind of won quite big, then followed by God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah.
That's really the 1-2 punch, what I could see. And, Elden Ring, I think, based on what I've heard, kind of rightfully so, winning, Game of the Year. I don't know whether there was many surprises here.
No. Well, it was a flat year, wasn't it? It was either a few blockbusters and then nothing, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the surprise one is probably the mobile game, Marvel Snap. I think they've done a good job there actually on that one.
Have you played it?
No, I've not, but I've seen what it's doing, and it actually makes a lot of sense. And they've got Ben Brode, who was essentially the game director of Hearthstone, the sort of Blizzard equivalent with the Warcraft theme in it, and he's kind of taken a team across there to create that. So that seems to be doing really well. I've not played it, but I play plenty of mobile games, and it's one of those that I would probably try at some point.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it as well. Not played it myself yet, but it's free to play, right?
Yeah, yeah. But there's one of those things that if it's... I've not looked at it in detail, but, Hearthstone got to a point where you'd end up having to keep paying per season just to get loads of packs. So I don't know if Marvel Snap would follow it, but it is, free to play initially. And I imagine at some point, if you need to pull out more cards and stuff, that there must be a monetization angle.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I've heard good things about it.
Mm.
I mean, that's for sure. I think one of the things I would say is, can someone just tell me the difference between best action game versus best action adventure? I mean, can someone just clarify what that means? Like,
is it arcade action game versus
They
RPG?
weren't that specific. So obviously, Bayonetta 3 won best action game, and God of War Ragnarok won best action adventure. And I'm just kind of scratching my chin a little bit here, if you know what I mean.
It must be action RPG versus action hack and slash or something. That's got to be it, really.
They're all hacking and slashing as much as I can see. Is that except for one's got a pair of big axes, or whatnot. So, really, I think the GOTYs this year, to my mind, it was a good watch. In terms of the games that were announced, uncharacteristically non-filler. It did feel at times like a PlayStation state of play. So it would be consistent that Xbox showed nothing. Even from that perspective.
Just out of interest, how does the money work on this? The Sony would pay the Game Awards to actually host, or do you think, or the Game Awards is such a stage that it works the other way around?
No, I think it would definitely be, the model would be that it's kind of airtime, isn't it? Really, that's the only way I would really be able to describe that.
Yeah, so I've read last week, this is obviously Jan now, 2023, that Xbox are probably going to have their own showing probably early February, I think. End of Jan or early February, which is going to be kind of what they should have been showing at this game show to set the stage for 2023 early before Sony does. So that probably explains why.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I've heard the same sorts of things.
Sitting on their hands.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the same sorts of things, but we kind of got some awareness of what's coming out for Sony. Next year. They've got Final Fantasy 16, Forspoken. They've got the next Spider-Man. If I understand it correctly.
You've got the Last of Us multiplayer as well. They've already started showing.
Yeah.
They said they're going to be talking about it very, very soon.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's after the TV shows, the HBO shows coming up on the 16th of Jan.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised either during that week or a few weeks after they start warming up. I think that their multiplayer game is getting released this year because they've been talking about it. It's been rumoured to come out last year, end of last year. It didn't happen, so I think it's ready. Because remember that they actually made that as it was meant to be bundled with the Last of Us 2. They actually spun it out to another game. So
yeah, that's right. I mean, it would have worked the same way as I think Last of Us 1. Really, I hope I'm right in saying this, but there was a multiplayer component.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I played that.
Yeah, same thing happened with Uncharted as well.
Yeah, I've played both those. They're actually really good.
Yeah, I know. Not necessarily your traditional kind of multiplayer, especially all you do is playing COD.
But it was rather than bloat in terms of items and things to buy. It was just a really fun game to play.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which
I would definitely agree.
And I don't know whether I'd be interested to see what they do this time, where they keep some of that with more depth, or they're going to make it more RPG like, let's say.
Yeah, if it's one of their kind of 10 so-called live service games, and you imagine it would be, you can imagine it being a little bit more expansive, with a bit more depth. How that translates, into gameplay, I'm not really sure. As we keep saying, I think they're hell-bent on doing that. I think, that's going to be their bag over the next generation, or, in the one after next.
Yeah,
as long as they can get money out of it.
I think again that's the when Xbox murders themselves potentially this year, the steamroll will start. Well, the next wave of steamroll from Sony will be their games as service to get people probably hooked for the next 5 years on wherever those franchises, because they got the TV shows and movies as well. They're talking about, and Gran Turismo.
Yeah, no, that was
TV
announced at CS. Correct, yeah.
Is it a movie or TV show? I think
It's a movie. It's a movie.
It's a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit shocking who are in these movies as well, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we kind of drift into more of that talk, I mean, Game of the Year. I don't know that I've got much more to say about it, but I mean, for me, it was a fairly strong showing for the actual kind of Game of the Year event. In terms of who won and lost, no surprise, no surprise, but it was a flat year, but not to insult Elden Ring or God of War Ragnarok. There were really strong games in a year where there weren't many games, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fair shout to say, like, even in other years where you had a fuller kind of release schedule, that the outcome would have been they would have been the winners anyway. They were both really strong products. Yeah. But thankfully, the Game of the Year awards missed the whole there wasn't too many cringeworthy moments. There was a strong showing in terms of kind of game announcements. I think this time round didn't feel like filler at all. Okay, and I think with that said, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, guys, I think the next topic I want to talk about is really the next generation of PC GPUs. So, AMD, Nvidia, and Intel, they've launched the next generation of their GPU products. So I'll just go through, let's say company by company, just giving the kind of like highlights, and then we kind of maybe get into a bit more detail. So, obviously Intel have entered the GPU market, or maybe re-entered the GPU market, or maybe they never left the GPU market. But they certainly kind of like released some discrete desktop gaming GPUs. What can you say about that? Well, probably around kind of a year too late in terms of releasing them. They're a generation or two down now in terms of performance. Massive driver problems, software problems, huge from what I can make out. And they kind of released a couple of SKUs that I kind of know about, the A770 or A770 or an A750. But these are really mid-range GPUs. That, as much as I understood, basically stack up well against is it a 2070? Something along those lines, I believe. So a couple of generations down now. But, at least they were, fabricated on a fairly modern kind of TSMC, N6 node. But it kind of feels at the moment that, it's already dead. A giant like Intel going into the GPU market, it's already done. And there's been murmurings around whether they, whether they will basically continue, in this GPU market for desktop.
And just a question, I'm assuming they would have known that they would have, even if it was a really good card, it would have struggled against the competition. Do you think they've entered the market knowing it will take them probably 2 or 3 generations of building
I think so.
Chips that they will eventually get back in?
I think so. I think
okay.
I think that would have had to be based on the timing and where they sit in the market. That had to be the strategy. But obviously, when they were previewing and kind of like let's say marketing the card and obviously giving the tech talks, right? I mean, my feeling on the Intel GPUs was that, wow, this is a real feature complete card
Yeah.
or kind of like set of technology. But the thing was, it just came out so bloody late. You know, it needed to come out a lot earlier to be a bit more competitive. You know, there were delays basically, and then when it did come out, you had all these driver issues. I mean, literally, in some circumstances, games not even start.
Wow.
I mean, it's taking us back to the 80s or 90s. To the PC gaming, well done. That's real retro. Yeah, but
Maybe that's the experience they were going for.
we're gonna release a fairly high end, basically
Subpar software product.
yeah, high end subpar
And it'll go
software.
down like a storm.
Yeah, and it did, but not the kind of stomp that it was kind of reckoning on, unfortunately. I mean, not to be cruel, obviously you hear some of the media outlets say, well, I can't recommend this card, but it's a nice collector's item. To me, that seems quite bloody insulting. You know what I mean? Like, they're effectively, in other words, say, don't buy this card. If you want to play games, don't buy this card, is what they're kind of saying. But I kind of feel that it's a shame, and I'm hoping that Intel have got the long game in mind and they continue. But again, their share price had tanked. It's whether they feel that this market's worth kind of like pursuing. I mean, they basically let's say stopped certain products. Octane memory, they stopped that, so they're cutting back themselves. Yeah, they're letting people go as well.
So I mean, surely that's. I mean, we're about to enter some sort of horrific recession, aren't we? We're probably already in it, but
yeah, we're in it.
Yeah, and that's how much do you think that plays into?
I think a lot.
Yeah. You can't enter a new market and continue to make losses whilst trying to cut costs and survive, right? So you can see all the big companies are doing it, just kind of pushing towards that. So. Some of these things, they just have to make those difficult decisions, especially with products that aren't making them any money.
Especially with technology, it's a continuous thing, isn't it? Because even before the product comes out, you have to expend the millions upon kind of R&D, because these graphics cards, these CPUs come out every 1 to 2 years. I mean, and right now the kind of it seems like the cadence is every year almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of R&D. So they're really investing many years in advance, and at some point they need to kind of balance the book somewhat. So that's the dilemma.
Yeah, and I think some of the difficulties at the moment, especially the GPU market, right? If we're looking at the specifically the GPUs, with the crypto market and all the stuff in and around it dropping, there's just too much supply out there.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, that does not helping things, obviously.
The crypto thing is all dying as well, so there's, I guess, is that affecting the prices and the demand for these? Oh yeah, it would, yeah.
I think it's affecting necessarily prices and demand for, let's say, GPUs. But what's it doing? It's bolstering the second-hand market. So in many ways, it's indirectly kind of affecting prices. But you now got a situation where there's a glut of cards there on the second-hand market that people can get hold of as well. And the other side of things is that the last generation of these GPUs maybe didn't necessarily sell as well as they ought to have. So there's lots of stock out there from the 30 series and the 6000 series that's just not really been moved.
Yeah, but
so they need to offload that.
That's because Nvidia went into these crazy streaks of cards that people don't need. I mean, like who in their right mind was buying those 3090s? Yeah, and everything else.
It'll be interesting to hear what I say next. But I mean, the reality is that I've heard that AMD are doing quite well out of their last gen. Could be CPU, but certainly there's good prices and bargains to be had there. I think more so on the CPU market actually. Talking about buying things that you don't need, let's talk about Nvidia. I've got to say, I'm usually fairly unkind to Nvidia, but I've got to say this time round they had both the brute force and the innovation advantage, as far as I'm concerned. Business ethics aside, they kind of stood, head and shoulders above, everybody else. And I kind of say that. I mean, obviously it's been widely reported that, performance-wise, they've got the king, okay, in the 4090. But what they did that was quite interesting. They had DLSS 3, and this other thing called Nvidia Remix. DLSS 3 uses AI to create. It's kind of like AI generated frames. Yeah. So obviously to double frame rates. I don't know what it does to latency. I mean, there's some Nvidia feature you got to switch on to kind of manage latency. It goes on by default if you use DLSS 3. But to me that's quite innovative. Using AI to do that, because I think they kind of like insert this fake frame in between the last and the next. Well, when I say next, right, that frame's already happened. Hence the latency, right? But just a kind of double frame rate, and that's quite interesting.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I've not even spotted that, so I have to look that up.
It's basically interpolation.
Yeah, but it's going to have to predict what's going to happen, right?
No, it doesn't predict, but because I mean, these frames are generated at such speed, right? That obviously between two frames, insert the fake frame, then obviously, gets spat out. There's a disadvantage with latency when you do that.
Yeah, because
it's waiting. It's
the frame that you've
waiting.
already created, if you're using that to do a frame behind, I'm assuming
you're
that's
holding
the way
off
of doing
on.
it. Yeah, exactly.
You're holding off
on
on shunting that out. You're holding off on it until you put that kind of fake frame in. Hence the latency kind of overhead that you get when But they've tried to basically not solve but improve that situation with some sort of kind of Nvidia feature around latency anyway, and they had that in previous generations. Yeah, but let's assume that it can only improve. Yeah, that is quite innovative, in itself. It's innovative. What it's actually doing here, Al, obviously frames per second are usually there's an overhead on the CPU, so it's helping for situations where people's rigs have a CPU kind of like a bottleneck. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or they're on lower end CPUs. Maybe they've got a bigger GPU. So that's quite interesting. That's to me real innovation. And the thing that really caught my eye was Nvidia Remix. So they literally took Portal and added ray tracing to it. They literally took it and added ray tracing to it, and it looks amazing. By the way, I mean, I think Digital Foundry also looked at it.
Is that they've changed the game engine first, or they used the AI on the chip just to add the?
I haven't looked at the details of this. I really haven't looked at the details of this.
Okay, yeah.
But what I understood from one conversation is that newer games use kind of like shaders, which is they're just like these compute units. Yeah, older games don't. And what they've been able to do for these older games is, it feels like some sort of I don't know, injection in the kind of graphics kind of like pipeline. Yeah, for these older games where they've been able to kind of like inject in kind of like step to basically do some sort of kind of like ray tracing. Yeah, maybe on a kind of like frame by frame basis, something along those lines. I'm not really sure. But when I kind of like heard about it, I just thought, wow, that's pretty innovative. And that's like something that no one else is even attempting. You're giving your old classic games a kind of lease of life, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be every game. Yeah, if you're able to do that, that's kind of wow for me. And Portal being quite a well-known, old school game, to see it kind of like with ray tracing, yeah, and it's the same game, but it's just been given this kind of Nvidia remix treatment. And I thought, wow, that's real innovation. I mean, look, Nvidia in terms of GPU software and that, they're streaks ahead of anybody else. There's no doubt about that. Streaks ahead. But they've got the brute force advantage as well. This 4090, it basically how it's been described is almost the generation ahead in terms of performance. Yeah, it's a generation ahead. Gives us a no compromise solution to run ray tracing at 4K in high frame rates. It ticks every one of those boxes, and it's not something that we thought we'd get to until maybe the following generation. So they've really pulled out the stops to this. So what's the downside? Well, it's kind of like, $1,600 or pounds or whatever MSRP. So it's the most expensive gaming GPU that's ever existed. Not productivity or data center, but gaming, right? 1,600, yeah. But it actually sold pretty well. It sold 100,000 units plus at launch. There's people out there who want this card at that price.
And what? Not scalpers?
Literally. I don't think this was even scalped. I mean, but what people are really saying is that one of the reasons that the 4090 looks so attractive is because the 4080 and the 4080 12GB, aka 4070 Ti or Ti, whatever the bloody hell they want to call it now, after the rebrand, are comparably bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're getting a better, let's say, dollar pound per frame on the 4090. That you over these other cards.
Yeah, okay. If they've done that, done that in terms of analysis of performance per pound or per whatever currency that you're in, that makes a lot of sense. I know the 4070 Ti has been absolutely panned based on reviews I've seen of it.
I mean, I think the 4080, the 4070, Ti, because relatively not giving you that much of a boost in performance in terms versus last generation, and I think the expectation is 3090 will be now. The 4080 should be comparable to the 3090. 47 Ti comparable to the 3080. That's the kind of but it's not favourable versus the kind of prices they've set these things at, because everything's bumped up in price. I mean, the 4080 is a $1,200 card, right? A couple generations. I've got a 2080. That would have been the comparable card during the time a couple of years back. That was just before the COVID lockdown, and I paid about £570 for it. And really, it would have been going for maybe 700 when it first came out. That's a massive markup.
Yep.
Do you think the people in the PC gaming market actually care anymore? And I'm just not care about the cards. I care about the cost as much. For example, people are used to paying £1,300 for an iPhone now. And I think pre-pandemic it was a bit of a shock. What people are used to. I see people with Pros all the time. They don't even think about the normal one.
Yeah.
And they'll find a way to justify it themselves, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think you're right about the pre and post pandemic is a little bit different. But at least with a phone or an iPhone, when you've paid £1,000 or whatever it may be, right? This thing's fully operational. It does stuff.
Yeah.
When you pay £1,000 for a graphics card, you still need to plug it into something.
It's true. Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's a little bit different. It's I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is. But I mean, I will say that the 4090 actually sold comparably well at launch, whereas the 4080 didn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems weird that people are spending this much. Again, I think, Joe, like you, I just remember the building gaming PCs at a decent budget was reasonable, but they're getting to a point where it's just insane. But I don't know what they're playing on these things. Like, honestly, unless they're in the metaverse on I don't know, 8K per eye or something, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's the no compromise, GPU and 40. I don't know. I mean, I just find the whole thing quite strange in many ways, and
there's no games being released even.
that's the other thing. I mean, how good does it need to be when it becomes, imperceptible to the human eye? I mean, that's the other thing. But anyway, let's move on to AMD. Right? I mean, AMD usually kind of seen as the savior of PC gaming. Yeah. Unfortunately, they effed up this time. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I mean, they're usually quite good in their marketing and announcements. So when they announced the 7000 series RDNA 3 graphics cards, I think the performance kind of increase was around about, I believe it that at the top end of it, it was 1.6 to 1.8. Yeah, versus their last generation. Didn't materialize based on testing. Yeah. And then obviously a lot of negative press around, let's say, throttling, which I believe is actually a very isolated kind of issue with a small number of, let's say, AMD specific cards really with their vapor chamber. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's all this talk that the drivers are not good. It needs a lot of work, and there was rumors that AMD kind of software engineers were working over the December period to get some improvements out. It looks bad even from the efficiency standpoint, which is kind of bloody amazing when you're talking about AMD. So something's gone wrong there. Yeah, something has definitely gone wrong. And it'll be interesting to see if they do release some, updated drive. And there have been updated, let's say updates to the drivers. What might happen? But there's something that's not quite right here.
I'm wondering if it's because they just pushed too far with because it's quite. I mean, that reminds me of what happened with my card with the 5700 series, where there was driver issues, but they did stabilize eventually. But it took a lot of work for them to do that. Although actually, I think I had an update on my AMD drivers where they removed some features, even hitting my one as a result. But I think there was a patch that fixed it as well.
Yeah, they're not the best when it comes to software. That's for sure. They're improving, but it's widely known they're not the best. They haven't quite done it Intel in this space, but
Yeah, or at least for GPUs anyway. I mean, CPUs is another story.
Yeah, I mean CPUs they're quite strong. I mean, but I will say, I mean, like one of the defining moments, I guess, for them is that they move the chiplets. And it's the first time on a GPU space they've done that. So speculating, some of these issues could be down to that kind of like massive architectural change with the drivers and the like, and it hasn't been smooth. It kind of almost feels this is their kind of like
first series of a new generation.
Yeah, so it'll be kind of quite interesting. I mean, the other downside is obviously the ray tracing isn't really as strong as the Nvidia cards. They're a generation down, so it's comparable to say the 30 series. Yeah, which is no bad thing in itself actually. Let's be honest, but they're catching up, but they're still a generation behind. Yeah, that's for sure. And they talked about FSR3, and I thought. But they talked about it, but they didn't really say what it was or what it does. So WTF is it? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if that was in response to DLSS 3 or not. But I thought, wow, what is this? Well, they might have moved to a new kind of like technical architecture, but right now, well, they're not in the good books of many people, and they're not even trying to compare themselves to the 4090 as well. So they're 7900 XTX. That's about 1,000. And performance-wise, it sits between the 4090 and the 4080. Their 7900 XT sits between, I think, the 4080 and 4070, something along those lines. So, and when you count for ray tracing, they're losing comparably. So it's interesting. I mean, there's comparable performance there,
But
but
yeah.
there's some things that just don't make sense. You know, so I think they feels like they rushed the release.
Yeah.
These things weren't ready.
But at the price to performance that you're mentioning there, it seems to be in the right spot though. If the 7900 XTX is the in between the 4090 and 4080 and cheaper than the 4080, then price performance wise it should be better. Although if there's drivers issues, and obviously you're not going to get there, right? So.
Yeah, there's issues in you know, but I mean I think the 7900 XTX is good. The 7900 XT is bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's actually 900.
Mm-hmm. Oh, in that
Yeah.
case, yeah.
Yeah, that's 900. It's so.
Mm.
You know, with significantly worse RT performance, to be honest. So yeah, not a great time for for the GPU market. I mean, we still got this duopoly. Nvidia and AMD still rule, and I think that's a problem because it kind of feels like AMD are kind of wanting to behave more and more like Nvidia. You know, they had an absolute opportunity here. Because the negative press around especially the 4080 12 gigabyte
Mm-hmm.
was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they literally tried to sell what was a 70 series die as an 80 series die to justify a price hike, as much as I understand it. But then AMD comes out, yeah, we know you effed up, but we like your style.
Yeah, let's
We'll
join the
kind of
bandwagon.
do something similar. Yeah, you're making money, we're making money. What's there not to like here? You know, so prices do suck. I mean, come on. Don't get it. Yeah. I also do wonder about what the hell is good enough these days. You know what I mean? You know, we talk about some of the performance of these GPU parts. Prices aside, you're getting, even for the 4070 Ti, you're getting double the performance of a PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Crazy,
easily, yeah,
Crazy.
with better RT. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what is good enough? And I just do wonder this perpetual kind of push towards more and more and more and more. Like it's
games that aren't built for it yet.
Well, and actually, do you need it? Right? I think we've discussed in this podcast before. I've said, what's next? Like, I mean, your eyes can only handle so much. It's like, do you need more? Do you need more fidelity? Do you need any more? I don't know.
I'm just kind of wondering. You know, we're fast approaching where our GPU technology basically is going to outstrip what our basically display technology can do. You know,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Come on. I mean, it's good that AMD have basically moved on to chiplets, because this could be a way for them to kind of compete with Nvidia, because there's all sorts of cost implications in terms of going to chiplets. There's all sorts of innovation, right? And this is a primer in order for them to get there. Fair enough, but you better produce next time round. Otherwise, no one's gonna bloody care, chiplets or not. But one thing that I will call out, which is I feel was quite interesting, worth calling out, it was AMD at CES actually. They're actually introducing their AI tech finally, and I don't know if you guys remember I think they bought Xilinx, yeah, it's an FPGA company, and what they've got now for the AI component is they described, I think it was a configurable or customizable AI component, which kind of speaks to what kind of an FPGA is really in reality, right? But they're rolling it out for their laptops in the kind of their new mobile CPUs, which actually look and sound quite good. There's a 16-core high-end variant of it. With integrated graphics, and obviously this AI component to it, so it's got an AI engine. But again, that might mean at some point you're going to see more and more AI in AMD graphics, or uses of AI in AMD graphics, more so than current day.
Are these they're just like tricks to just squeeze more out of the existing architecture?
I think they are. I think they you know they are tricks, right? Rather than the idea is not to brute force everything.
Yeah.
Because if you think about a GPU, it's just a massively multi kind of like processing kind of like piece of silicon.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does the same type of processing transaction at high volume, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just using AI, for tricks like you kind of improving images, kind of like fake frames now.
Yeah.
All of that sort of thing, and it's a way to get more out of less. When it's all said and done.
There was one just off-piece question I wanted to ask you guys. I think many podcasts ago we were talking about any big shifts happening in architecture and processors. Where does quantum computing and that impact on chips and fundamental change in architecture of some of these chips play? Are we many years out from that, like 10, 15?
Certainly from the consumer space, I think we are. I think it's miles
Yeah,
off.
there's only
Yeah.
a few large companies that have started to actually offer up that service, and honestly, there's not a huge amount of use cases that need it right now, and it's too expensive. So even for enterprise level, it's too expensive. Consumer, we're miles away, and I can't see the need for it yet.
Yeah.
So the calculations that it's going to do, if anything, it's probably things like security and encryption that it's probably going to mess up the most. But yeah, it's going to be a weird time when it does actually start getting more cost effective at an enterprise level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see it being in the consumer product for a while. And I remember kind of like going to a session on quantum computing. I literally couldn't understand it.
Yeah, that's literally the thing I was going to say. I've been trying to get my head around how it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't understand it. I mean, like, it's like, what does this mean?
It's the
like,
calculation, it's the simulations that you get off it. So
yeah, but even with that out, it just felt so kind of abstract. What was being described, I just couldn't kind of.
but that's what I mean. You need some proper use cases of what is it actually solving, and there will be some niche things that it could solve that's much better, much faster than possibly certain things. And I think that's the thing that will bring it to life.
Yeah, I just didn't get how it works, basically.
We're going to go pieced here, but there's some really crazy things around where if you're simulating multiple versions of the same thing, it can help do that type of processing.
Yeah, but that's why the security encryption space is the place in which it could potentially break that quicker than possibly anything else that's out there.
Yeah, I need to sit down with somebody who's an expert in this and ask them why. Can you tell me why? just tell me in a sentence why.
Yeah.
And when am I going to play Destiny on it?
Yeah. When they're going to update a PvP map to play on using this new hardware.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? The time that quantum computing is going to become the norm is when Bungie release a new PvP component for Destiny.
So we'll be dead by then as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so look, getting back on track. I mean, look, that's the state of GPUs, at the moment, and look, interesting stuff, but it's not been a stellar year, I think, certainly for GPUs. CPUs been much better. Yeah, that's in a healthy state. GPUs, Nvidia, yep, they're still running things, as it were. So
I mean, all of this stuff in terms of designing these chips has to be done in, as teams working in person in offices. COVID must have. Yeah, are these shit chips an impact before?
I don't think these are shit chips. Yeah, these are not shit. These are not shit chips, guys. The trouble is these are overpriced chips.
Yeah,
and it's also kind of like bad marketing. Yeah, that's the problem. And there are teething problems, I'm sure. It feels kind of like rushed.
So are you saying that the impact of everyone working remote in this industry is still yet to fit it in the chips?
Yeah, possibly.
They probably designed some of this stuff way before COVID.
Yeah, they're kind of designed years in advance. Every generation's like years in advance. So,
Yeah, exactly.
and I think I've understood that AMD have got like multiple teams who just kind of deliver something and then kind of like work on the next thing that's a couple generations ahead. So they kind of like almost flipping from
Yeah.
TikTok. Yeah,
And they're very, very incremental as well in terms of how they move forward, aren't they? I guess is the other thing.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that would have affected them would have been the actual supply of the chips in order to actually create them and then test them.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. I think actually the design work. They design them once or a few times, but then they need to print out so many of them to test them and actually performance tune them in order to then get out that product. So I don't think that's the people in the design phase isn't the problem. It's the testing.
Yeah, I don't know how many times they might design the things. I mean, it could be probably many iterations, but I don't think you can put any of this down to COVID because the problem is COVID and the impact of COVID hasn't set any of these prices necessarily. Yeah, I mean there might be economical. There might be economic factors because of COVID, but ultimately I think these companies are setting the prices. And could they set the prices lower? I think they could. Yeah, but why are the prices so high? Is that it's
something.
Yeah.
What's the value of something? It's just what someone's willing to pay. So
correct.
That's what it is, isn't it?
And that's what COVID's really basically. And you talked about this before, Jay, right? That's what COVID's really done. It's shown these companies that, you consumers are willing to pay a lot more than we originally thought. Damn, what are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
We prices are going up,
and they're staying up.
Yeah, they're staying up.
Yeah, until people
absolutely staying up.
Vote with their wallets, but it looks like people are still paying for it.
Well, you can vote with your wallets all you want, but when everybody's doing it, like where are you gonna walk to? And like you got then one other option is that do nothing.
I think I think we are there's so much choice in so many types of entertainment. And it's become a significant escapism from the work life that people are
willing to pay
whatever for in their whatever they're interested in now.
But it's the same with again obviously I've spoken about free to play games and that sort of stuff. If you treat it as a hobby, then people are willing to pay for these microtransactions, and as a result, they'll spend a lot more on it.
Yeah, true. I mean, at the end of the day, the prices are the prices. I think this is going to be the new norm, unless someone very disruptive, probably not Intel now, is going to kind of like roll in and really disrupt the market. And maybe it's these China challenges everybody keeps talking about. Maybe that's the only way that something's going to happen. Because it kind of feels like AMD has lost their way somewhat. You know what I mean?
The thing is, we won't be able to get it in the Western market.
No,
based on how things are escalating.
There's going to be some sort of huge, crazy tariff against it as well. Who knows? But yeah, in saying all of this, I think let's move on to the next topic. Okay, guys, the next topic I want to get into, it's really PlayStation versus Xbox. And it really is PlayStation versus Xbox. They seem to be going at it. So let's just roll into some of the details. So right now, Xbox's acquisition of Activision seems to be a bit in the quagmire, if I'm being honest. So the FTC, CMA and EU are basically looking at this deal. I think the FTC have threatened to sue. Yeah, so people are putting the blockers on this. Xbox also, let's be honest, they've had a year of, no games of nothing noteworthy. So not good, not good.
Pentiment.
And they're also now gently nudging towards the price hike. And I will say one thing. Is it a price hike just for hardware? Was it a price hike also for Game Pass?
The Game Pass thing was always going to happen, right? Everyone knows it. It's
Yep.
too cheap. It's way too cheap.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, PlayStation, so what can we say about them? True to form, they say nothing. Yeah. However, have they been actually quite shrewd in dealing with this Activision acquisition? And I might also add, they don't seem to care about anything else but COD. You know, like, they don't care about anything else. Bethesda, yeah. Bethesda, yeah. You know, yeah. Starfield, yeah. Let's say Blizzard, yeah. Diablo, yeah, maybe, that's cool. Go ahead. COD, no effing way you're getting COD. Do you know what I mean? Not at any cost.
That microtransaction money, it's...
Yeah.
So I wouldn't take it as Sony are that bothered by COD. It's the narrative they can use to throw spanners in the works for Xbox to stop the
Also
merger
very
happening.
true.
Yeah, I don't
Also
think they
very
really-
true.
Plus, they've already got their backup card, which is their strong buying out Bungie.
That's also true. Very true.
Yeah, Bungie is still not as, what's the right word? Its games aren't as mass market as COD.
They don't have the brand yet. No, that's for sure. No.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bungie, because they're multiple projects, one of them is probably going to be a mass market COD, not a COD game, but like a mass market type of game like COD to capture the masses, right? I wouldn't be surprised.
So a Sony financed Destiny TV show coming up, probably with Henry Cavill in that as well. It's gonna happen.
I can't wait for that. I hope it's an anime.
That would be a good fit, to be honest.
It would be the better fit, wouldn't it? Let's put some bets down. Like if you in 12 months' time, what do you guys predict? What position we'll be at in terms of this battle off in the Octagon?
In 12 months' time, do you know what? I actually absolutely thought that this Activision deal would absolutely go through.
It felt like it for a while because they weren't complaining.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everyone complained. I was like, what? You've had a long time to think about it.
Yeah, well, that's what regulators are like. So I actually, I don't know. I shouldn't be saying I'm surprised because look, it's a massive deal for one thing. $69 billion is the biggest deal in this industry, and it's a big deal out of the industry. Forget about just gaming, yeah. And it's the other factor is Microsoft. Yeah. Who, no matter what you say, are simply one of the most powerful companies in the world. So from that perspective, yeah, I guess this due diligence should be expected. But now you're entering into a situation where you think, what if this deal doesn't happen? Right? And then what if Xbox are true to form and they basically don't produce any games? Yeah. And I just think in 12 months' time,
This is the thing with people come off Game Pass very quickly as well. So if it goes the wrong way, it goes the wrong way fast.
yeah. The reason to get someone like Activision on board is to have a kind of hook to keep people on Game Pass, I guess. I mean, that's one way to look at it. And when you kind of think of it like that, you kind of wonder, yeah, is it the cash cow that people think it is? You know what I mean? Because obviously you get the numbers where, you get the gross, you don't get the net. You know what I mean? When they talk about some of these numbers, so it's an interesting one. But if Activision doesn't happen, right? Then I think in 12 months' time, Xbox is going to be, they're probably going to be second for a while. Let's put it that way. However, this is the however part. If they can't spend that $69 billion on Activision, what are they going to do with some of that money? Are they going to go on the offensive elsewhere? You know, they start gobbling up other kind of making other small acquisitions. They could also do that. Yeah, I just think anything they do from this point onwards is just going to be about feeding Game Pass.
I actually have a slightly different view. That I think they're already screwed because they're already unable to manage the game studios that they have for whatever reason, giving too much control to the game studios or having too much control themselves and interfering and meddling. I don't know where it is. I just think them if the Activision deal goes through, that they are going to have too many game studios and they can't handle that. And if they don't, the deal doesn't go through, then it's going to be such a hit on their reputation. Plus, also, if it doesn't go through the Activision, I don't think the games are going to hit next year. I mean, Redfall is.
I think that's going to be a middling game at best, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
And Starfield looks like it's going to be a buggy mess. We've seen this story with Cyberpunk. It doesn't even look that good from the trailers. It looks. I can imagine it is a good game in terms of depth and ideas, but I just think the game engine they're using looks dated.
Yeah, it's true.
I think they're in a right mess. I think, and some of the other studios are so early in development on what their stuff they're working on. Some of them are using Unreal Engine 5. That's still early. I just think that it's more hot air in Microsoft camp than we even realise. I tell you, 2022 has been a year of everything blowing up in our faces, whether it's the economy, fake news about startups, fake news about the Teslas, fake news in crypto, it's fake news in gaming, it's fake news in politics. It really is fake news everywhere, and it's just the House of Cards is kind of fall. And
it does feel it's starting to collapse. I really
think in 12 months' time we'll be looking back at this, say, God, they effed it up even more in 2023. That's what my prediction.
But how could they turn it around, though? I mean,
so I reckon there's an interesting one now, especially with the because as you mentioned, Jay, around the economy and things kind of going south. I think actually if Xbox and the Activision deal doesn't go through, I think that works really well for Microsoft. That money, that 69 million, is similar to Elon Musk like overpaying for Twitter. It's another one that actually, if you were to now do a price valuation against the purchase of Activision, it's probably not worth that.
That's true. That's an interesting perspective, yeah. But what I was saying was, even if it doesn't go through, they're not strong enough in what they're already handling. So
they need it. They need it because of content. They need to feed Game Pass. And the other thing is, if it doesn't go through, they actually have a penalty in the contract of $3 billion. So they have to shell that out. Yeah. So it's not going to be any kind of free lunch.
No, they're probably saving a good third. So
yeah, they are. I mean, look, they are a $1 trillion company. For God's sake, I mean, let's not forget that. Let's not.
It's as Al said, the deal, if it doesn't go through with the whole recession happening, it's probably worth more than they'll lose on $3 billion.
And then the question is what do they do with it? Because they do need to do something. Because I think, like both of you saying, they're in a really bad really bad shape. It feels like this generation is lost for them. With PlayStation
last year,
with PlayStation 5 and the VR 2 coming out and the stuff that's being announced, I think they're in a really strong position.
It's odd. It's very odd.
Phil Spencer, almost kind of like Elon Musk, has been put. I think he's been overblown as this Xbox god.
That's because of what they had before.
Yeah, I have to say I like the way he speaks.
Yeah.
Right, I
But
like
he's
the
media
way.
trained. Jay's media trained. Come
Yeah,
on, he says.
but I've seen him in quite a few stuff in 2022. His tone has changed. The corporate answers, the standard bullshit of looking after the customer and all that, just the same crap you get from like banks and corporates from
Yeah,
other
yeah.
industries. He's become more like that because he's got no answers for the mess. Whereas before he was kind of like he's a gamer, he gets it. He'll be asking the right questions. He'll be playing the games in the studio. I think he's so removed from all that. I think he's just the same as everybody else who's in a senior position. He's just so far removed from what the actual.
Yeah.
It's like in the old agile space, right? Leaders being so far removed from the work on the ground. They're just steering a ship, but we're not knowing how it's being steered and
Yeah,
who's doing the steering.
Absolutely. And his roles changed as well. That's the other thing. Like I'm just thinking right now. Also, Xbox, they had to kind of like build up their reputation after the Xbox One. As soon as that fell flat on its face, they went through a whole thing with we need to patch up our rep as a gaming company. And they started. Obviously they done the Xbox One X, and and they started like, oh, we're for the gamers, and they did all the back comparison kind of retro stuff, and they did all of that, and they've been perpetually trying to kind of build their image up as, yeah, God, we're just gamers. But at some point you still got to bloody deliver some games, man. Where are they? You know what I mean? Thanks for the goodwill. I hear you. But now you got to deliver some games. You are ultimately Xbox. Your parent company is $1 trillion company.
I mean, before Phil Spencer was at his position now, if you're having meetings with Phil Spencer, who was close to these teams and these projects, and you're giving the funding every year or every 6 months, 3 months, however it works, right? You would go up and say, right, I don't want to see these charts and roadmaps. Show me the games. Let me play it. To walk me through what it's doing. Like, these guys haven't been doing that, have they?
They've had a chance. They had a chance, right? And that was the Halo chance, and they failed.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately the
How
problem.
could you have basically missed?
Ow! I don't know if you guys are close to it, because I've been playing it. I've been going back when they've been doing updates. I've been like watching the YouTube videos on it. I've even gone and played with the what's it called? What's the mode for making maps? What's it called?
Oh, like a map creator type thing.
Forge, yeah.
I've messed about with that. They have royally fucked up the.
I don't want to hear that.
Like everything, right? It's too late. It's dead.
That's
Halo is one of my happiest gaming memories.
That was the chance.
You know what I mean?
I have been watching this week, because every now and again I'll just look at a couple of videos that come up on my feed of people who have been fans of Halo and creating videos for the last 10 years saying I've had enough, I've given up now. I'm not buying anything anymore.
Too sad.
OPM. I can't. They've already released the roadmap for next year, mostly. It's nothing, pretty much.
It's sad.
It
really is sad.
It's like the content creators and what am I going to talk about? Some maybe 1 or 2 cosmetics that are coming out in 6 months. It's done. And
the TV program is just as rubbish.
I
was going to ask about
that.
I mean, seriously. For one thing, Master Chief takes off his helmet.
Oh no!
What kind of bloody Halo television program is this?
I heard about that, but they did that in Mandalorian, didn't they? But they didn't do it straight away. They did it
but that was right at the tail end of Mandalorian,
Yeah.
and there was an emotional precedence for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There can't have been any precedents for kind of like basically kind of Master Chief taking us. And I heard he had sex on the TV program as well.
I heard about that as well.
Yeah, Master Chief basically gets it on, like Barry White. So instead of the Halo theme tune, right? You hear Barry White in the background. Like, and there he goes.
Yeah, just coming back to what I was saying, Halo is done. That's their flagship. It's finished. I'll tell you that now. 343. So many senior people have been leaving, and they've just left now. Who have been the last remnants of what was previously the Bungie shell, or people used to work at. It is done. That game is finished.
It's such a shame. Halo for me, right? I mean, the memories I have of that game, in the moments and the kind of soundtrack. The soundtrack's obviously it's the best soundtrack in gaming.
Yeah, I Destiny. If you've played, guys, I think that my overall experience. I played most of the Halos, right, and I love them, life changing. I've had a better life changing experiences with Destiny more so than I have with Halo.
I think right now the state of Halo is to be expected.
Yeah, and the character himself, Master Chief, is too dated as well.
The thing is, like, you had the original trilogy, right? And then I think you had Reach, and that was meant to be the last Bungie game, and then
ODST.
Yeah, that was okay, but what happened after that? Really?
When Bungie left, it just fell off a cliff. Yeah,
it was just death for Halo, wasn't it? Really?
So I'm gonna throw in a prediction. I reckon Xbox, the Activision deal's gonna fall over, and they're gonna spend their money and go after EA.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, they actually need basically publishers and companies who deliver annual games, because that really fits more into the Game Pass model than anything else. They don't, they can't really do anything with once in a while AAA games. Game Pass, they need a constant churn of content.
Yep.
And that would work better. And that's why, I mean, in my mind, more and more, I kind of feel, don't go after the Game Pass model. Go after the Genshin model.
Yeah.
Do that, because that, to me, right, it seems a safer investment. Do you know what I mean? It does feel like a safer investment now.
I don't know. I can't believe I didn't even call this out, right, or didn't pick up on it, but Sony have always maintained the narrative around their games. With Xbox, people just talk about Game Pass. They don't actually
That's exactly it.
Don't even talk about the games. It's just Game Pass.
That's right. And I remember kind of like at the start of this generation, and I remember obviously even back then there wasn't necessarily a very strong kind of launch kind of lineup for the Series X and S, and I said, well, you know what, they don't need games. Game Pass is their AAA game. That's why you own one. Yeah. The trouble is keeping Game Pass going takes a big investment. Yeah, you need constant content on it. And the more I think about this, I think to myself, how sustainable is that versus a live service game where you have some? I mean, the Genshin Impact thing is case in point, right? Or even Fortnite. You just have this one gaming platform, and all you do is just keep churning out content, and it's mostly the same engine. Yeah, you just keep doing that, and it's not from Greenfield's development. You just have this game. You just keep on adding content to it, and the players just keep coming back.
So this is the other thing, right? Look how many, and choose just as an example, right? Because this is probably an area that I'm probably more familiar with as well. But let's take the type of game Destiny is, and how many imitators have tried to copy that same first-person shooter or third-person games as a service. It's really hard to keep building that content on a continuous rolling wave. it's very challenging, and that's a lot of them have failed in that.
Yeah, but I think that's because of the engine that's behind it, and Destiny should have seen the examples in games.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think as much as the troubles Bungie has had, they still on the PvE side, they've been fine. It's been top tier. Yeah, it actually has been top tier throughout. I have to say, there've been a few bumps here, and they've had a few quiet periods, but it's been pretty good over like the last 10 years. PvP, yeah, they've just let it die for whatever reason. I'm saying that other companies that try to Division and even Halo Infinite, right, to come in and have a continuous rolling wave of like DLCs or seasons is a difficult thing for Xbox to have that because Game Pass to survive. My understanding is Xbox was planning to change Forza, for example, to rather than a release game which they charge 70 quid, they were going to create an engine for which they would then have an update every 1 or 2 years. That justifies people carry on doing the Game Pass. That's a fundamental shift in what the developers need to be, how they build, what they build. And I don't think that's another reason. I don't think Microsoft doesn't have the experience.
But what do you need Game Pass for that? That's just a live service. If you know what I mean, it's just kind of like you can do that without plonking it on Game Pass.
Yeah, but the Game Pass effectively is a container for what you would.
Yeah,
people pay for a monthly subscription for WoW. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but they need to change them. So it's kind of in the middle ground, right? So I hear what Joe is saying. It's the fact that Game Pass. It's a free to play game? What the hell are you getting, right? So you need to have like. Give them a battle pass of this game, of this game, of this game, of this game. He needs to give them the in-game thing.
That was happening.
Those games I'm talking about aren't free to play, are they? They like Division.
Yeah, but it needs to change. I think that's why it needs to change. If it's pure live service and free to play, then they need to change that. And it's all about battle passes, cosmetics and kind of additional things that then gets, if you've got a good core game and people are playing it and enjoying it, and the media and kind of additional collab and content in and around it, you build a massive ecosystem and you just get a fan base that's just crazy.
It's a little confusing as to, actually I think where PlayStation Plus Premium is going to end up and where Game Pass is going to end up. It almost feels like it's, in many ways, it's too big a beast to feed, if you know what I mean. And like, if you're basically in it for the money, and let's be honest, they all are. You're not here to change basically the world, are they? They're here to kind of like extract whatever money they can get out of us.
Well, they're already saying people are saying, investment analysts are saying that the model of Netflix is actually broken. It doesn't work over a longer period. So if that is the flagship in the TV and movie space,
it's boring, isn't it? Like,
then and that's why the share price.
Well, if you look at Netflix,
I love Netflix, but
I love Netflix as well. But if you look at what they have to do, right? They have to generate content all the time. There's so much content on it to keep people interested, but that it costs money.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But here's another curveball. I don't know if you guys have been looking at ChatGPT.
I registered and I was about to use it. I haven't used it yet, but I've heard a little bit about it. Yeah, but
there's a lot of it's part of OpenAI and the kind of groups that have been creating it. But they've kind of expanded now to essentially the sort of third or 3.5 version, and it's a very popular kind of chat interface to use an AI model that's behind it, and it's creating some very creative stuff, including coding, actually. So if you ask it to write something in a particular language, and probably more like Python and other things, it can generate it for you. So there's a lot of people on content creators which are saying, oh, I use ChatGPT to create essentially use and write Unity code to create a game. As an example. So, and I think Microsoft are trying to buy it as part of their Bing search engine or something. So if they get that, they might be able to do something interesting. But I mean, it's for the search engine space and challenging Google. But you know, they could potentially use it for games.
I don't see how that's going to help Game Pass.
It's a very, very long-winded,
games.
Yeah,
Unless you can say, like, make me a good AAA game.
It will be AAA.
Its main competitive use case is, you know, when you go to Google and you just have that, you just type in
keyword searches,
and you're doing like a random search. It can give you a almost as if you paid someone to do an hour or 2 hours worth of research and write a summary for you on any topic. It can do that as well as do more great stuff, like as Al said, around generate some code on a particular use case for either a game engine or write some creative writing or something like that.
I can tell you, if Microsoft purchased them and then Xbox tried to weave that into anything they're doing, it's done. If that happens, they're done.
They've killed themselves on the inside, yeah.
We know they're desperate. If you're going to do that, you're done. Before we talk too much about the Xbox, I mean, let's go back to PlayStation a little bit. And obviously we touched upon them. But are Sony more shrewd than I'm giving them credit for? Because for a while now, this year, especially this year, you looked at, upon Jim Ryan, and Jim Ryan's been at PlayStation for a long time. And we said, yeah, Jim Ryan doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not a gamer. He's just a businessman. But yet here we are, right? In a situation, come to the end of the year, when you look at the summer parts, Sony have basically released, some decent games this year. God of War, Horizon, GT7. They've had their problems, obviously, but they've been good quality games. I mean, people have not complained about the quality, and they've all reviewed well. They've had Stray, Sifu on the indie scene. They've locked in, obviously, certain exclusives. They've locked in a lot of things, yeah. Third-party exclusives, like, with Square Enix and Final Fantasy, so that's coming. There's stuff like, I think, is it Stellar Blade that we saw, on one state of play. That looks pretty good.
But all these things that you're talking about is the status quo of how they operate.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and I actually think that Jim Ryan, he's not done anything different to how they've done it before, except keep quiet.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's all he's done that's different.
Yeah. People will gauge me. People will judge me in my tenure as CEO of basically Sony Interactive Entertainment in how quiet I can be. That's what it's happened. It's like
there's still some publishers who don't talk about any games until they're ready as well. There are some that still do that.
Yeah.
I mean, From Software kind of like that, are they not? Like,
yeah.
For the games that Xbox have already showed, such as Redfall and Starfield, if you just park their ability to deliver quality games on the new timelines that they're saying now, if you look at the remaining studios and what they've previously released on the previous generation and what they're likely to build going forward, and you look through all the studios that they own, which are quite a few, I don't feel that excited about a lot of the games they have made before or going to make. Hence why they're buying Blizzard, right? It explains that, because they don't have confidence themselves, right?
Well, it should be good, shouldn't it? But I just feel it's so many years away. I mean, like, it's soft. Yeah? Doom, Eternal. You'd imagine they could do something. The guys who did Wolfenstein, you could imagine they would do something.
Yeah.
Hellblade 2, you could imagine that could be good. But some of these things, it's
Gears of War.
Yeah. But it just feels so far away. That's the problem.
It does. They've not shown that much of
Yeah.
any of those things. They've so many CGI trailers and
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest problem with it. I mean, it all might change in January, February, or whenever they decide a showcase, and we might be wowed. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
there's some messed up things going on at the moment. I think, especially this Activision, deal not going through, and the lack of anything this year is not good. The price hikes, which we kind of felt, or they felt at one point, or they communicated at one point, weren't going to happen. More and more, yeah, it's going to happen. And Sony are doing well without doing much, if you know what I mean. Like you said, like they're just status quo. Yeah, I'll just kind of release some really substandard kind of like premium kind of like services. I'm okay with that.
I think we've got the Last of Us show coming out. Let's see how good that is. Got Gran Turismo coming out this year. Let's see how good that is. The Uncharted, I haven't seen it, but didn't rate that high, did it?
No, it did. I mean, well, I don't know if it rated that highly on Metacritic, but it did really well in the box office.
Oh, right, okay.
That's really what mattered.
Okay,
You know what
yeah.
I mean, this is why it's becoming a franchise, because it did really well in the box office. And what I will say is that, it goes back to my point. A Sony shrewd. Sony are doing what they've always done, so that formula's still working. But in the background, I imagine them toiling away at this live service model kind of strategy. That's what I'm thinking. They've gone deadly silent. They're not doing showcases. PlayStation blog is having the time of its life at the moment. Because it seems to be the de facto place to get really killer kind of PlayStation news. I mean, PSVR 2 looks like a really good product, and again, feels low key. But for anybody that's tried it, it's a killer product.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't think they're going to have the games. I just feel like they're going to be demo games again.
You need those games, right? I mean,
they need those games. But as a piece of technology, you can't argue with it. It's a good piece of technology. And God of War did pretty well. I mean, it's a cross-gen game, but one thing you can say about Sony, they do release quality. There was no issues with, there were no technical issues as much as I don't understand about it. It ran well on almost all the platforms, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they kind of I don't know if I could say they ended the year strongly, but they just ended the year, and they've kind of like done enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I also, because I think the actual hardware is better. I think the controller is better. I think the UI is better. I think there are games that have been slightly more better optimized on the PS5.
Yeah.
That come out in reviews. I think it has more niche games, fighting games, Japanese games on there, RPGs. I think it's still got more of a cool factor of just PlayStation. I think that the marketing's better. I think the branding is better.
Oh, the marketing's easily better.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a marketing, machine, but
even the designs of how they do their showcase videos, if you really step back from probably the media controlled paid Game Pass is the best value in gaming crap that all these shills have been saying, that we've also bought into ourselves.
Yeah.
I think it's
that's very true. That's very true. There's
very
very little else, isn't there, that you say that you could pin your hopes on, really. And it's quite weird in my view, because I kind of thought that Sony, you are in deep doo-doo.
That's what I thought as well.
Yeah, but now I'm just thinking, I'm not sure you are in deep doo-doo. I mean, you're throwing doo-doo over the other side of the fence. That's how it feels at the moment.
But they're not actively doing it. They're just doing what they're normally doing, and it appears that they're firing doo by just doing what they normally do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I'm kind of wondering, when you do show what you're actually really doing, and you kind of like present what could be a coherent strategy, what is that going to do? If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I still can't believe they're not going to, do this kind of like multi cross media sort of thing. That's definitely happening.
Yeah. I just a kind of a summary point for me at least is that inside gaming, outside gaming, 2022 or the years leading up to 22, up to the end of 2022, just shows me don't trust any of the marketing and double check and don't get over too hyped about what each of these platforms could be doing until you see the games, you play the games, or someone, even the reviews I don't even trust anymore. It's got that bad, right? Until you've actually seen some average YouTuber who's played it, or you've watched on Twitch, or you've played it yourself, then say, yeah, good game, tick to Sony, or tick
exactly.
to Xbox.
And any pre-release reviews, day one release review is you can see a comparison to Metacritic every single time, right? It's just and you've now got so much options with Twitch and YouTube to wait and see. There's no need to come into the hype of a pre-order.
Yeah, I mean, in 12 months' time, guys. I mean, back to that question. I think, if the Activision deal doesn't go through, if we don't see at least one or two really good games, right?
I'm talking 10 out of 10s, right?
Yeah, I'm talking.
10.
Yeah, let's just.
10.
I want to see some big hitters out of them, right? I mean, what's this money doing if it's not going to do that, right? Then I've got to say, I mean, then really, you got to say, I mean, what's the point? What are you doing here? You know what I mean? It's because it's almost it's almost as if they.
Yeah, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. If they got 6 months, otherwise I'm getting rid of that Xbox.
Yeah. The thing is, I would even offer you money for it. But the thing is, I don't think I could even do even less on that than I could do anything else because there's nothing on it.
Yeah, there's nothing on
It's
it.
just a bit of plastic and the silicon. I mean, that's it. You can do anything with it.
I rang Smith's toy store and no one had it in stock, and I got out of bed, didn't even brush my teeth, wash my face, drove the car, went to Smith's Toys and bought that Xbox, thinking, what a result! I've got it, and people aren't going to have it in stock for another year or two, and there's all these games, everyone's going to want to buy it. The value of it's going to go up. How wrong was I?
Yeah, yeah. There's not a lot, is there?
They have to do something. They have to do something, or it's one of those things that I said a while back. A reason I would buy an Xbox is if they can get a deal with Steam.
That's not going to happen. How that is not going to happen? I can tell you.
Steam will drag itself down by having them on it.
That is not going to. Ultimately, they're competitors at a certain level. That isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Got to get some games out. We've got to come to a conclusion with this Activision deal. And you're right. If Activision doesn't happen, they're likely going to go after something else. And I think it has to be a kind of a publisher, developer who do kind of more annual content, frequent content is what they need. And as for PlayStation, the silence is helping them. From what I can see, just keep silent, But I just, I'm thinking, you're right, Jay. They're in a holding pattern at the moment. They're status quo. We'll do what we're gonna do, but when it comes to the multimedia side of things, when it comes to, I think, live service, we might actually see the next phase or iteration of what's going to happen. And that might be quite interesting. In which case, I always maintain that they're not even going to care about Game Pass when that happens. They're operating on a different model.
I actually would rather, as a game, selfishly, I would rather pay Sony or Xbox more money if the quality, if that means they make more money and justifies them putting out more quality and sticking in the current model. Change for the sake of change. Apple Music, that kind of model, or Spotify, I think has improved the experience as a music listener. Just a choice. It works. Yeah, you spend more money than you would before buying stuff for most people, but it works. As Netflix and shows and TV shows and movies, I think that model is not panning out that well. The quality has dropped versus movie releases in cinema, and the quality of TV shows. There are good stuff in there, obviously, but I think it's getting worse.
I think it's the level of curation you need, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's not
sustainable.
That's
the sustainable part. That's the problem, isn't it? Really.
Yep. And I think for games, some of the original predictions I think will end up coming true, which is the model doesn't work for games because it needs increasing more amounts of investment, and you need that pressure of, in order to sell my next game, it has to be really good quality tested. It has to have creative new ideas. It has to push the genre forward. Versus, we're getting the money on a subscription. We'll just do something mediocre and quick get it out the door.
Yeah, and no gamer can possibly consume all of that. And once they realise that, what's going to happen then? Yeah, why are we making this kind of sort of investment?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like watching a TV show and movie, you don't really watch it again.
Games have got some replay value, but with hundreds of games at your disposal, I mean, it's God, how are you going to do that? But in saying all of this, guys, I think the next year is going to be obviously very interesting for these, for both Xbox and PlayStation. And I will say that let these guys fight, and fanboys, you are out of a job now. Because these guys are going to fight without you. And that's one bright spot that I can see coming out of all of this.
Well, it's a one-sided fight.
Yeah, it does feel like that at the moment. But it does swing around, doesn't it, at the end of the day? So, we'll see. Okay, guys, with that said, let's move on to the next topic. Right, guys, the next topic I want to get into is just basically 2022. I just want to get a reflection on the year. Maybe get, up to 5 kind of noteworthy points, good or bad, from you, on the year. And, your general feeling on it from the kind of gaming and technology perspective. Al, I'm going to start with you.
Ooh. 22. Feels like ages ago now already. God, it wasn't much on the gaming space, I think. Obviously it was all Elden Ring, I think, last year. There was the odd bit here and there, but yeah, and obviously God of War towards the end. But the rest of it was pretty lackluster, right? I think we had a few things at the beginning. There was probably a good revival of Cyberpunk, but
well, and it's also whatever that you feel kind of basically was noteworthy for you personally, not just in mainstream press.
I mean, I kept going down deeper into the mobile gaming hole and stuff like that. We had
the rabbit hole.
We obviously had a good go at Diablo Immortal and stuff as well. So that is interesting. So yeah, gaming wise, there wasn't a huge amount. I think technology wise, I think there's some interesting stuff. I think again, with things more recently around ChatGPT and AI is interesting. Yeah, it's a strange year, and obviously from a personal perspective, I did stuff like changing jobs. So that was quite a significant shift for myself, but I feel all the better for it. So yeah, yeah, indeed. You guys have noticed the difference. So it's like, yeah, been an interesting year. I think definitely I've played a lot less. But maybe that is, I don't know how much, it's probably just all on my mobile, to be honest. There's probably a hell of a lot of my hours are now on mobile rather than on PC games. But yeah, I think in reflection, it was okay, but it wasn't exactly a huge year for gaming and tech.
Yeah, and for me, I've had a bit of a positive midlife crisis going on outside of gaming, where my habits are changing and my interests are changing, and it's kind of crossed over to gaming. I would say in 2022, I've spent a lot of time looking at gaming news and understanding what's happening with gaming companies, and we spoke about what's happening with Xbox, the wheels falling off in my view, and so I didn't really play that much in anything new, I would say, in 2022. I started to chip away at some of my backlog, although I didn't get as far as I wanted to. I've had a whole bunch of games I've just deleted because I was just thinking they've been sitting on my dashboard on my PS5, and I'm just not going to play them, so I just got rid of those. I've also gone down the rabbit hole with fighting games. I've bought about 5 mainstream fighting games, got an arcade stick, and I've been really watching loads of YouTube videos and understanding the language, some of the techniques. It's actually really interesting because it's far more deeper than you think. So that's been quite cool. My kids are getting older, so we've been playing a lot of the Switch, particularly with Smash Brothers. Such a great game. That's been feeding into the kind of the fighting game rabbit hole. It's been a weird year. I think, other than the Elden Ring and God of War, which I haven't bought yet. There wasn't any games that really pulled me in, and I've just
How about Horizon?
Horizon, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I haven't finished the first one, so I need to get through that. The other thing as well is I've kind of fallen out of love with Destiny. I haven't actually played it for the last 2 months nearly. I stopped raiding on the Sundays with my raid group because there's not enough content, and I'm at a place where I will see what the next big DLC coming out in February is like. I'm happy if it's not that substantial after the initial hype. I'm happy to just leave that game until the next 2 or 3 years, where Bungie will come out either with a new game or the relaunch of the next saga for Destiny. I'll jump back in. And then I'll use this coming year to just kind of go through my backlog. But yeah, that's been my 2022, which sounds like similar to you guys. It's been a bit of a strange one. News and personal habits around gaming.
Yeah, I mean, mine's kind of been similar. I mean, I've not gamed, at all. When I say at all, versus what I usually do this year, for one reason or another. And yeah, like yourself, Jay, been just a bit more interested in keeping up with the kind of tech and gaming news. So I've kind of ploughed a lot of time in just kind of learning, about how things work, spec of tech, and that's kind of kept me interested, to say. But the moments, I mean, I think Steam Deck coming out, both gave me a good feeling that, okay, portable's not really dead, but I kind of wish Sony would do something. They're clearly not, right? And then I think, like you, I didn't feel there was a glut of games this year. Elden Ring dominated, God of War, Horizon. I was glad that there was a real Gran Turismo sequel, even though they seem to kind of, come in and out with kind of microtransactions, saturate the thing, or unfair microtransactions, as it were. I mean, what else? I mean, I think a few notable points are, I would say, and this is more of a negative point, I'm just kind of feeling, is the quality of games at launch getting worse.
Oh, it's really bad.
Consistently, I would say it's happening too often for there to be, if you like, no problem, if you know what I mean.
they can get away with it, and it's becoming the norm. If you're not doing it as a publisher, where you come out with a broken game and then go, oh, we're going to fix it to get the engagement back. And we spoke about this on a podcast last year. It's a proven model that works for the publishers and game developers.
Yeah.
It's a terrible situation, though, isn't it?
It's kind of interesting, and also in the mobile game space, there's a lot of kind of hidden theories that they actually release games broken, so that they get that public backlash to then fix it, to then get people to engage in it, and it's like free publicity to them. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Are you really doing that? Like, that seems crazy to me.
You go from villain to hero very rapidly, and if you think about that, how many times has that really happened? I mean, I guess there's a difference from a game being absolutely broken, versus a game that's, let's say, how can I call this, like, not really feature complete, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
MVPs that shouldn't be MVPs, if you know what I mean?
Lacking features and not optimized. I mean, you see it's in Call of Duty, you got the Pokemon game.
Yeah, I mean, Gotham Knights. I mean, Gotham Knights, they compare that to Arkham Knight, which is a last gen game. And Arkham Knight was substantially a better looking game. And it wasn't just frame rate, by the way.
Oh, that is embarrassing, isn't it?
That is very embarrassing. That's obviously a less positive moment. I mean, I've been watching the second coming of the console wars, basically, with great interest. Like, obviously there's a Sony versus Microsoft thing going on. That's kind of starting to feel very real, and like Sony basically counter-attacking, let's say, Xbox with the power of silence.
Yeah.
just let them destroy themselves, I think.
Just keep quiet, saying nothing. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure that I like that part about Sony, because I find it frankly quite boring. But it is what it is. So I mean, again, that's a less kind of positive point. But and other than that, I don't know what I'd really call out. I mean, from a tech perspective, I'm glad from the CPU perspective that Intel at least got 2 generations of CPU they've managed to release that are comparably doing well. But then, in terms of the GPU market, where it really mattered, right? They just basically poo-pooed their release. That's the only way to call it, right? Poo-pooed it. Not good. So, that's
at least they tried.
Done. At least they tried. Yeah. It's not good enough. Yeah, I don't think there's any kind of like moments that would call out in 2022. I mean, good thing is, I'm at least glad for some of these events that people are actually going in person now. So you're seeing crowds back, and events and presentations are in front of actually real people. You know what I mean? Remember you used to have to see those ghost crowds. Yeah, in some of these presentations, and you see like 1 or 2 kind of like people in the crowd, maybe kind of 10 meters apart, clapping, or what was silhouettes of people that they weren't really there. They were definitely not there. Yeah, so I'm glad that's done away with. I'll call all those things out. Guys, anything to kind of wrap up on this section, and you kind of like say, what would you like to see in 2023? More of, less of?
I think some quality games from Xbox and a regular cadence from them. I think more of the same from PlayStation, and hopefully a nice little roadmap of games for their PS VR2, just so it can justify people buying that. I think from what we've all been hearing, it's a really good piece of tech. They just need to deliver on the games. And I hope they move away from the kind of the demo type games, trying to integrate it more in, fully features, additional features of the big budget games. Also, I'd like to see Nintendo announce a hardware update to the Nintendo Switch, because it's starting to struggle.
It's probably a dear one, yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think alongside that, a whole new set of fresh games. I'm ready for a new Mario. what's already been announced. I'm looking forward to the new Zelda game. And some of the TV series also from Sony as well. We've got Last of Us coming up on the 16th. They've already mentioned this Gran Turismo movie, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a movie.
Yeah. So those are the headlines for me. Oh yeah, and I think for me, continue on with that, going down the fighting game rabbit hole. I'm really keen to watch some of the fighting competitions this year. We've got Combo Breaker and Evo. They're the two kind of big ones that I've been looking at, and maybe even lucky, maybe trying to attend one in the UK, probably not as a competitor, but just to watch it,
just to be part of the crowd, get some merch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just be one of the geeks in the crowd.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. I'm looking forward to seeing PSVR 2 take off. In these games, if we can get a few good games around it, I think it'll be awesome. That might be the reason I get a PS5.
Finally. Price hike, man.
Diablo 4 being hopeful, but we'll cover that as a separate topic. And there seems to be quite a good lineup of games kind of coming up into 23. Just hope they don't slip. Hope the quality is decent. And it'll be interesting to see, tech-wise, what this next, what people start doing with ChatGPT and the evolution around it. I suspect there's going to be lots of good and bad that comes from it.
Yeah, I think on my end, I just, for the year, I just want to play more games. Yeah. I kind of want to, obviously, I kind of want to see more kind of like AAA games from all parties. Obviously, more than interested to see, what the Xbox guys, have on their roadmap, because, they really need it. And they've got a lot of studios. With Sony, I think, I'm probably just happy to see them do more of the same, but equally, I kind of want to see what their actual strategy is. Not this holding pattern they've got. As I've said before, I don't really believe that's what they're actually going to be doing, going forward. So, whatever the actual strategy, what it is, live service, the cross media, whatever the hell they're doing with Evo, apart from sitting on the cash it generates, and what are they actually going to do with the premium service? Because to me, that premium service is just such junk. I've never seen such shit in my life.
If you look at what Sony are doing with like PlayStation Stars and digital collectibles, the quality of their app, the UI that they keep building on it, fingers crossed, I reckon they'll have, as part of their premium service, they'll roll in Crunchyroll, they'll roll in some special access to some stuff for Evo, maybe a couple of collectibles. Maybe at the moment you can't change the background on the PS5. I mean, it's fine, it works, but just take it to the next level. It'll
bring it together,
and it'll murder Xbox. And
it will murder everything out there. I mean, it won't be just gaming, will it? At that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just where is it? Right. I mean, because the middle tier I would consider getting, but the highest level tier, my God, that just looks like a black hole for my money.
Yeah. Also, I was going to mention
about it.
I mentioned there's this thing. There's PlayStation tournaments they've featured.
They've rolled it out.
They rolled it out already.
Yeah.
So
that'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Right?
Yeah, there's I think there's only 5 or 6 games you can get involved with, but that's the amateur tournaments from home. That's cool.
Boom. Yeah. Boom. And there's not been much publicity around it.
No.
Yeah. The other thing, I mean, like you guys mentioned PSVR too, and I got to admit that was one of the moments of 2022 that I didn't mention. Kind of want to see what happens. I mean, I'm really tempted. Yeah. I actually might get one, but again, even if I could only, and I don't know this is available, but the last Star Wars Squadrons game.
Oh yeah.
Even if I could only play that, I'll be somewhat happy. And I think a real kind of gauge on what kind of games we're going to see from Sony's first party with it is going to be the Horizon game. If that turns out to be just some sort of short-lived experimental, experience, then don't know. I might actually wait for a review. Actually, kind of.
Yeah,
Well, this is the thing.
That's why I'm at. I'm completely sold on the hardware. I mean, there needs, like someone said, there's an easy win with Half-Life Alex. That's just waiting to.
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, they got to. They must need to sign a deal with.
Or just the back catalog. The back catalog, right, of all the games that they had on PSVR 1. They need to make that kind of work. I know it's different kind of setup, but if they can port that stuff correctly, there's a lot of really good games up back there. They would be very useful on improved hardware.
Yeah, I mean, I do wish that they could have somehow made maybe some, if not all, of those games, backwards compatible. Because I know their physical limitations because of the two units work so differently. Yeah, but my God, you at least you had to load of software there, waiting to be exploited. Day one, you could have had a really good, PSVR version of the middle tier of PS Plus, waiting for gamers, but that didn't really happen. So, but let's see. I mean, those and I'm actually really interested to see what happens with Activision now, because that depending on what the outcome is, right, that's going to mean a few things. So that's going to be interesting. All right, guys. I think we're done with this part of the of the podcast. So let's move on to the next topic. Maybe we're saying goodbye. Who knows? Okay, guys, it's come to that time in the night where we've got to say our goodbyes. Now, I'm going to ask the usual question I always ask and say, what gaming and tech things or activities are you guys up to? I'll start with you.
Trying to think when was the last time we did, because we didn't have a good cadence of of podcasts last year. So I think in the gap, I'm going to say that I played a lot. So I've moved away from Genshin. I've pretty much stopped playing Genshin. PGR, I've stopped. Tower of Fantasy, I started playing and then I stopped. So I've stopped now. But I've moved all that time onto kind of a few kind of like smaller mobile games. One is the main one's probably I think I did mention it on the last one. Goddess of Victory, Nikke. So it's kind of like a time crisis on your mobile phone, which is quite nice. So it's quite good fun. And then another one that I'm just playing completely for free, but I'm actually getting to the point where I'm just going to stop playing it, called NeuroCloud. And then the only other one that I'm keeping going is Arknights. Arknights is doing really well, so I'm playing Arknights. PC wise, my brother bought me Plate Up, so I've been playing Plate Up with him, and we've been playing a bit of Sniper Elite 5. So those are the sort of games that I've been playing. Trying to think if I've been playing anything else. Probably not. I think those are the main things, and tech-wise is mostly just learning stuff for work and other things in and around that, which has been interesting. Yeah, so that's mostly me at the moment.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just, as I mentioned, I'm getting into fighting games. I've just bought some 2 new games in the PlayStation January sales. Got Under Night in Birth, which is an Arc Systems Work game. Bought Dragon Ball Fighters. I'll get into that. Play a bit more Guilty Gear Strive and King of Fighters 15. So I'm going to probably be going all in on that. and just watching videos on like fighting styles and techniques and how to train, that type of thing, with the view of trying to enter a competition. And probably in a year's time, I'm just going to give it a go. I'll probably be doing that, waiting to see what happens with Destiny in February, and that's about it for me.
Yeah, I mean, on my end, I'm starting to play more games. Thank God. Right, so I mean, I basically, got Crisis. Crisis? Did I just say Crisis? Yeah, I'm going back a bit. I mean, I got Cyberpunk, for the PC. Just thought that was probably the best version. You know what I mean. I haven't actually kind of played Doom Eternal, so I bought that. So I'm gonna start going through that, and basically, a couple of action RPGs, free to play action RPGs. I've been threatening to play for a bit. One was Lost Ark, out that I know you know, and the other one was Path of Exile. So decided to get into that before Diablo 4 drops. Let's put it that way. And that'll be an interesting thing, right? It might be a good way to have a freeway comparison between Path of Exile, Diablo 3, and Lost Ark before Diablo kicks off.
We should probably have a topic on Lost Ark. My brother's been playing it quite deep, so and he's probably slowly stopping it, but he's doing the raids and stuff as well. So might be interesting to get him on just for that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That'd definitely be interesting. We should do that. Yeah, just doing that. I mean, on the PlayStation, there are a few games that I kind of want to finish off, and then get to playing kind of the new God of War. I think rightly so. That's probably going to be my the next game that I play on console. Just because that the last game is still kind of fresh in my mind, and it's really kind of a narrative-driven game.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of thinking it kind of made more sense. Whereas, I haven't finished Horizon like yourself, Jay. But I'm just thinking going back to it's an outright open world game, right? It's going to take It's going to take me a long time to finish to my satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I probably kind of remember a little bit less about that. Beyond that, I mean, tech-wise, the job, doing more kind of data technology stuff, but generally speaking, just keeping up with PC technology, consumer PC technology, a little bit of data center, so that's keeping me pretty occupied. Yeah, so that's me, ticking along. And for this year, obviously, I need to do a bit more work on mapping out what we're going to do with the podcast. Obviously, get that cadence up, but without actually killing us.
Yeah, play some games. So we talked about.
That's right.
Yeah, we did that one with the Diablo Immortal, so we should do a few more.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun. That was quite an easy one.
Yeah, well, we've got Diablo 4 coming up, so we can definitely do that. But definitely any games you guys want to have a go at, I'm happy to get that recording.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Overwatch.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Let's do it. With that said, I think we've said enough about 2022, 2023, and whatnot. So I think it's time to say goodbyes.
It's goodbye from me, Al.
And it's goodbye for me, Jay.
And it's goodbye from me, Joel. And whatever you're doing, please like, subscribe, and comment. And have a stellar day.